Today we're interviewing Leonard Moore, and the interviewer is Mike McGregor from the Grand Valley State University's Veterans History Project. I'd like to start, Leonard, by when and where were you born?
Rockingham County, North Carolina.
Okay. And what's your birthday?
10/24/49.
Okay. And in Rockingham County, did you grow up in Rockingham County?
Yes, I did.
Okay. What did your parents do?
They were farmers,
Okay.
a small dairy farm and tobacco farm.
Okay. And did you have any brothers and sisters?
Yes, there was 5 boys and 2 girls.
I bet. Where were you in the seven?
I was number 2.
You were number 2,
Yeah.
so you had a lot of responsibility for the other
yeah.
ones. Huh? Yeah. Okay. Did you go to school in Rockingham County?
Yes, I did.
What did you do in school?
I played sports and goofed off a lot.
Sports and goofed off.
Yeah.
Okay. As you're going through high school, were you aware of Vietnam? What was happening?
Yeah, but not into a lot of detail.
Okay. Was your father a veteran?
Yes, he was World War II.
Okay. Were you drafted or?
Pretty much so. I volunteered for the draft. I didn't like my job, but would nobody hire me because I was 1A for the draft, so I went and told them to send me on the next boat.
Okay, and when were you drafted?
In March of '69.
March of '69. What did your dad think about that? You're getting drafted.
I didn't have a lot to say about it. I mean,
Okay, and where did you go to basic training?
Fort Bragg.
Fort Bragg, right in North Carolina,
Yeah.
right? And what was your first impression of basic training?
It was pretty rough. It was pretty demanding.
Did you have any problems with the discipline or the physical aspect of training?
No, I was in pretty good shape, so I didn't have any problem with it.
Can you remember what the makeup of your basic training company was in terms of enlistees, draftees, reservists, National Guard guys?
There was some enlisted reserve, National Guard, but most of it just draftees from all over the country. A lot of them from the Northeast.
Well, like you came from the Northeast, and
A lot of them did.
a lot from the South as well, or?
Yeah, it was really hard on a lot of them from the Northeast because you could tell they didn't have a lot of physical exercise. You know, they wasn't in shape. It was really hard on a lot of them.
Okay. What did your basic training consist of then?
Push-ups, running, classes, rifle range, all that kind of stuff.
Did you find any of that difficult?
Not really.
Okay. Did everybody make it through basic training, or were some recycled? Or?
There were several that was recycled, maybe 5 or 6 in our.
And do you know what the reasons for that were?
Mostly the PT.
The not really in shape
Right.
to do that. Okay. How long did your basic training last?
I think it was 8 weeks.
8 weeks. And what happened after basic training? Did you get leave?
Yeah, I got a 30-day leave and come home and help my daddy plant his crop of tobacco.
So you had didn't really have a vacation.
Well, yeah, I cut up a little.
Okay. And as you got out of basic, when you went on leave, did you know what where you were going to AIT?
Yeah,
And where were you ordered to AIT?
Fort Gordon, Georgia.
Fort Gordon, Georgia, to train in what MOS?
11B infantry.
11 Bravo. Okay. So then you got down to Fort Gordon. Did you find that training any easier, or from a discipline standpoint, did they treat you any better at AIT?
Probably a little better, yeah.
As you think back over your training, were any of you in basic or even AIT, were any of the training cadre Vietnam veterans?
Yeah.
Did they talk about it, or did they
Not a lot.
point things out
Yeah,
in terms of
they
training?
pointed out things that you needed to know when you got there.
Did you find that helpful?
Yeah.
So what did your infantry training at Fort Gordon consist of?
A lot of the same as basic. You know, rifle range, a lot of PT, classes, you know.
Did you spend a lot of time in the field?
Not a lot. We had a bivouac, but, you know,
How long was your bivouac?
just a couple of days.
Okay.
Because actually I didn't go on bivouac because I had some teeth pulled and I got like a 48-hour profile, so I didn't go any bivouac in basic or AIT.
Oh, how did you miss it in basic?
Had pneumonia.
Okay. Did that set you back in training at
No.
all? No.
Mm-mm.
Did they hospitalize you?
Uh-huh.
How long were you in the hospital then?
I'd say probably a good week.
Okay. And that was probably during bivouac week, so you.
Yeah, so I
okay.
missed that.
Okay. Any regrets about missing it?
No.
Okay. The folks, the people in your AIT training unit, were they the same basic mix from all over the country, or?
Probably so.
Okay. And if you think back, what was the racial mix of the training in both basic and AIT, if you could remember?
It was probably maybe 25% black at the most, something like that. We didn't have any Hispanics that I can think of.
Okay. And were the blacks mostly from the southern areas, or from all over as well? Yeah.
Yeah.
Was there any? Did you sense any racial tension during basic and AIT?
Not really. Not much at all.
Okay.
It was a different story in Vietnam. But
Yeah. Well, we'll get to that.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So, you AIT lasted how long?
I think it was 8 weeks too.
8 weeks. And did you get orders right away after AIT?
Uh-huh.
And your orders, what orders did you get?
Well, it wasn't specific, some sort of replacement deal. I didn't know what outfit I was going to be in Vietnam.
But you had orders for Vietnam.
Oh, yeah.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
And did you get leave then after
Yeah.
AIT?
About 30 days, I think.
During AIT, was any of the infantry training more keyed to Vietnam than maybe the general stuff you had in basic?
Probably.
And when you got orders for Vietnam, was there any specific Vietnam training that you went through
Mm-mm.
that you didn't have to go through?
Not before going to Vietnam.
Okay. So you got orders to go to Vietnam, and you got leave home again?
Yeah.
How long was that leave?
I think it was about 30 days.
30 days again? And where did you have to report to after that leave?
Fort Lewis, Washington.
Fort Lewis, Washington. You got to Fort Lewis, and what was the process when you got to Fort Lewis? What was the
You just
process?
wait around in the rain, and they got a loudspeaker, and they calling out names all day long, and you wait for your name to be called. I was there 4 or 5 days or a week or so
Before they called your
Yeah.
name. Okay. Okay, they called your name, and did you fly over then? Or?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, and what route did it take?
Stopped in Japan, and from Japan on to, I guess, Cam Ranh Bay.
Okay, you arrived in Cam Ranh Bay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. When you got off the plane in Cam Ranh Bay, what was your first impression of Vietnam?
Before we got off the plane, you could feel the heat coming in through the doors and the smell.
Oh, and the smell, the
Yeah.
heat and the smell.
Well,
And the heat bothered you a little bit, or?
well, I mean, this was August when I went over, but so it was warm at home, but it was hotter in Vietnam than it gets in North Carolina.
So okay.
But yeah, it did bother me some.
So you got to Vietnam, what, August of '69?
Right.
Okay, and talk about the process that you went through in Cam Ranh Bay. What happened there?
Well, we went to P training, that proficiency training.
Okay.
It lasted about a week. They
And what did that consist of?
all just, walking trails, setting up ambushes, just general infantry stuff, to get you prepared.
Did you do that at Cam Ranh, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and how did you react to that training now that you're in the real world there?
I don't know. It wasn't much different than basic AIT. It wasn't a big deal.
Okay, what, did you have any specific duties during that training? Did you have to pull perimeter, or? Do different things?
May have, but I
Oh,
can't
you remember that. Okay, so now you're spent about a week or so then in
Yeah.
Cam Ranh, and then were you then assigned to a unit?
Yeah, they told me I was going to the 101st.
Okay. And what was your reaction to going to the 101st? Since
Well, I knew that. Well, Hamburger Hill was already over at the time, and I knew that they were, involved in it. So I figured I might be going to a hot spot.
Did you ever wonder why you went to the 101st since you didn't go through jump school, or?
Well, you know, most people in the 101st did not go to jump school.
No, but everybody thought they were.
Yeah, everybody thought
Yeah,
they did, but
okay.
they didn't.
Okay, so you got assigned to the 101st, and how did you get from Cam Ranh to the 101st?
C-130,
From Cam Ranh to where?
probably the Fubai. That was the headquarters of the 101st, Camp Eagle. Yeah, and then I think I took another C-130 from there to Camp Evans. Evans had an airstrip.
Okay, then you got to Camp Evans, and were you then assigned to a specific unit at Camp Evans?
Yeah,
or-
3rd to 187.
Okay, and how did you join the unit then, and what happened to you when you first got to the unit?
I don't remember how I got to the unit, but I got there and my company was on a fire base called Erskine. It's the farthest one out. It's right on the border of Cambodia, but it took me probably a week and a half to ever get there. You know, catch a helicopter going. I'd go wait for the helicopter, and it'd either be full or didn't show up. So, you know, done details around Camp Evans till I finally got.
Did you get any other specific training in Camp Evans while you
No.
were waiting?
No.
So you finally get out to your unit,
Yeah.
and how were you received in the unit?
Not well at all. The morale was terrible. You know, they went through Hamburger Hill in May, and I got there in August, and the morale was not good. They'd go to sleep on guard duty, a lot of real bad attitudes, and they didn't want anything to do with a new guy.
Okay, so what did you think about all that when you got there?
Well, I didn't know why they had an attitude like it did, you know.
Did you, if they fell asleep on guard and that kind of thing, did anybody make any issues out of it?
Not really,
Was
Oh,
it
they-
just tolerated, or?
more or less. Because they wasn't gonna quit doing it anyway. It didn't matter what somebody said to them.
So what was the unit's function on Erskine there that?
Pretty much security. We had the artillery there and all.
So you're basically just pulling perimeter for
Well, we-
artillery fire base?
Yeah, but now we went out on a few hikes through the jungle, you know, scouting around.
Relatively close to the fire base?
Pretty much so. But there wasn't any kind of combat going on at the time.
Okay, so so you joined Bravo through to the 187th,
Right.
and you're doing that. How long did you stay with them?
When I got to Erskine, probably a week,
Okay,
and the Lieutenant Hightower said they were starting a new outfit back at Evans, a quick reaction force. Like if a company got in trouble, this was platoon size, we'd load up, help them get over the main problem, and then we'd leave, come back. So nobody volunteered, because, you know, this was gonna be a combat unit sure enough. And so the lieutenant asked me and one of the new sergeants, Tim Biegler, since we was the new guys, if we joined, so figured, heck, probably wouldn't sleep out in the jungle as much in an outfit like that, so I told them I'd go. They were supposed to have picked their best men for this thing, but they didn't even hardly know me or Biegler, either one, and it's real obvious that they sent some of their rejects too, to get them out of their outfit.
oh, so how many was sent out of your company?
Just two.
Just the two of you?
Yeah.
So what was your reaction? Did you feel you had a choice about it, or?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't have to go.
Okay.
But I didn't know nothing then, you know, so I figured what the heck, I'd try it.
Well, when you got there, before you go on with that, when you joined the B company, what was your basic load? Describe what you would have to carry when you went out on patrol, and
Well, you had to carry your food and your water and ammo, and everybody carried M60 ammo, whether you used the 60 or not. And a few smoke grenades, hand grenades, that sort of stuff.
how about personal gear?
Well, you had your toothbrush and a razor and
About,
a few packs of cigarettes.
what kind of weight do you think you were humping?
Depending on how long he's gone, 75 to 100 pounds, I'd say.
Okay. So how many rations would you carry?
Well, they usually had a general idea about how long you'd be out there, so, you know,
So if you're gonna be out for 5 days, you figure 2 Cs a day, so,
well, 3.
oh, okay, 3, you're
Yeah.
hungry.
Yeah,
Okay, so you'd carry 15.
yeah.
Would you break them down? I know a lot of guys would put them and get socks, and they'd put all the
Right.
cans in the socks
Yeah.
and tie them
Where
with
it
their
wouldn't-
Alice and that.
Yeah, it wouldn't take as much room.
Yeah. So you, how, especially being a new guy, getting there, you know, working and, you know, patrolling and all that with that weight and the climate, did you have any problems adjusting to it?
Not really, cause I'm in pretty good shape.
Okay.
It wasn't any harder on me than it was anybody else.
When you joined the unit, were you the only replacement that went in when you went with them, or did you accompany some other replacements?
No, I was the only one for that particular company at that time.
So you were there, what, just a couple weeks, and then you
Maybe a week.
and then you volunteered for the minicav.
Right.
Okay. And you described the minicav as just a quick reaction platoon that would be basically stationed at the brigade headquarters,
Yeah.
and they would react to a quick reaction
Right.
force to something that happened. Okay, so now you left Erskine and left Bravo Company, and you went back to Camp Evans. And tell me about this minicav. How was it organized, and how many people were involved with it, and the
Well-
types of folks that you served with there?
Well, Dennis Becker, he was lieutenant, and him and Colonel Bradley pretty much put this together. The first infantry division had something similar to this before we started it, and they got it together, and we never were authorized. I mean, you know, we had to get our rank and supplies from like our line companies and all that kind of stuff. But, you know, we went through a lot of training and evaluations and so forth.
What kind of training would you go through?
All stream crossings, you know, shooting the guns in the 60s, and a lot of training in the maps and communications, radios, that sort of thing.
So how many were in this?
It's about 30 people.
Yeah, about 30 people.
Right.
And were they pulled from all the various
Yeah,
companies of the
first
brigade?
and second of 506 and third to 187.
Okay, and what did you think of the guys that you were working with there? And the thing you said earlier that some of the units maybe sent to rejects and that.
It was pretty obvious to start with that some of them sent the rejects.
How was that obvious?
Well, I don't know how to describe it. They were worthless. I mean, you know, you could tell they wasn't going to pull their own weight, had attitudes and stuff like that. The majority of them were good soldiers.
Did these fellows who had the negative attitude, did it change as the unit kind of got more cohesive, or?
Not really. And I don't understand why they kept them there. You know, I don't understand why they didn't send them back to their line companies.
Okay.
Most of them stayed.
So how long were you doing this training before you came online, so to speak?
Well, not very long. You know, from pretty early, you know, we were ready to go out, but you know, if you had a few days that you didn't get a call, you did train. You know, they kept us on their toes. But now I wasn't really in the infantry part of that outfit. They needed 3 what they call Earl observers and a loach to communicate with Lieutenant Becker, mostly on the ground and back and forth. But that part of it didn't work because you don't have a PFC and a loach communicating with a captain or a lieutenant on the ground. Plus, a loach with a minigun couldn't carry but 2 people.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you didn't want both of them in front. You needed the 60 gunner in the back. So we went to the back with a 60, the three of us.
So you were basically in a minicav, but you were a gunner on the road.
On the loach. Yeah.
How did you get selected for that?
I was still pretty new and nobody else wanted to do it.
Okay.
I mean, you know, that was one of the most dangerous jobs over, being a loach gunner.
But there's some tricks to shooting like an M60 from at a target while you're moving pretty fast and up and down and this kind of thing. You have to.
And you had to shoot left-handed from the lap, you know,
Right.
in a loach you didn't have a stand.
So did you adjust to that very well, or
Pretty well.
Or did you consider yourself a good shot to begin with? And
Yeah, I was a pretty good shot to begin with and got a lot better. We done a lot of training.
you trained a lot specifically on the aerial gunnery then.
Mhm.
Yeah. And what kind of targets would you shoot at when you
All
were
ammo cans or anything, you know, just.
at various elevations and
Uh-huh.
altitudes and
Yeah.
angles
Yeah.
and stuff like that? Okay.
Had to be real careful because, you know, on a Huey, the gun won't let you go high enough to shoot your props
Right.
off or back or forward, but the loach, you know,
Yeah, free form, yeah.
you could shoot yourself down.
Yeah. Well, that's the next question. Did anybody do that?
I don't recall anybody doing that.
So, did you just volunteered and they gave it to you, or did you have to, you know, like qualify for it? Or
No, they pretty well, the three of us pretty well.
They said, "Thank God you volunteered."
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So, what was your reaction to being in the air a lot?
Well, the first thing, you know, you got air sick, which everybody does, but especially in a loach because it's like a roller coaster ride, you know. But I got used to it, and it was a real interesting job. A lot of excitement.
Okay. As a gunner, did you wear any body armor on that?
We at most of the time would wear a flak jacket.
Just your flak jackets?
Yeah.
Okay. You didn't have any ceramic plates or anything? Okay, so now in the minicav, the role of the loach in the minicav was to basically just coordinate what they're doing on the ground and spot and form and give them some fire support.
But you know, we flew with sometimes it'd be two loaches, you know, one low, one high, and then sometimes it was the Cobra high and the loach low. But we also flew for the 3187, the second 506 and all. Even though I was in the minicav, if it wasn't going on anything going in the minicav, we'd fly for anybody.
Okay, and when you're flying, what were your specific missions then?
We'd go into the area, get down low, try to find trails or bunkers or anything, and really, to be honest with you, our main job was to draw a fire so we'd know where it is at. Because
If you were low, you did. Yeah.
They'd take a pot shot at the loach every little bit.
And you usually worked in two bird sets.
Oh yeah, you never worked alone.
So when you said one low, one high, the low was bait, and what would happen when you got shot at with the high guy?
Oh God, you just say taking fire and take off, and that Cobra was coming in wide open. I mean, it wasn't too good idea to shoot at a loach.
So how often would you receive enemy fire?
I don't know. Sometimes you go a long time and not have it, and then you know you get it pretty regular. But you know, most of the time we didn't know it when we were being shot at. You know, that helicopters make so much noise. A lot of times the people on the ground would tell us we're taking fire.
Could you see any tracers, or
they
were probably usually behind you by the time?
Yeah, once in a while, but not very often.
Okay. So and looking for trails and places where they cross streams and that kind of, you had to get pretty low.
Oh yeah.
Now, when you were doing this flying, were you mostly in the lowlands? You know, like east, well, you know, Evans.
It was almost all in the mountains.
All in the mountains.
But
okay.
we did go to the flatlands between Evans and the ocean, and we did get some goods out there.
Yeah.
But 98% of it was in the mountains.
This is just a personal question. Did you do any stuff in that big graveyard that was off to the south of Evans on the east side of Highway 1? You know, where they had all the mounds?
No,
okay.
Don't recall anything.
Okay. So what was your reaction in terms of flying in the mountains? Because you're going low, you probably flew map to the earth a lot going going over that.
Well, I don't know, you didn't pay any attention to the height of the helicopter except when you was on the top of one of the high ridges and then all of a sudden it dropped off 3,000 feet, you know, stuff like that.
Were you able to spot much from the air?
Sometimes you were, and most of the time you're just looking at trees all day. You know, it's hard to see through a triple canopy jump.
Yeah. And your job was obviously as gunner, but you also had to observe.
Oh, yeah.
Stuff.
Generally speaking, from the door here forward, the pilot checked out that area, and from here back was my area.
Okay. And so, okay, the crew and the loach would be, you had the pilot
And me.
and you,
That was
and that
it.
was it. Yeah. Okay. So, as the minicav, what was when we got with you got with minicav, now you're the loaches. Did that concept work? Were they deployed a lot?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But like I said, there was 3 of us could fly 2 days and have 1 day off.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, if we wasn't doing anything for the minicav, we was doing something for, you know, one of the other companies.
But they used the minicav a lot then, right?
They used them right much. They used the loaches a lot.
A lot, yeah.
Regular,
yeah,
but
used
the infantry part was used pretty regular, but not with so much.
Now, did that concept continue, or at some point did they just drop it?
No, it was probably about April. We were going to lose the loaches in the minicav. So
Why were you going to lose the loaches?
I don't really know. Higher up decided that we wouldn't have the loaches anymore. I really don't know the whole story, but we knew that we wasn't going to have the loaches anymore. So I was not going to be a loach gunner anymore. So they sent me to CLC, that combat leadership class, and
Okay, where was that at?
that was at Evans.
Okay, and what did that consist of?
Just map reading, communications. You know, they're going to give you a squad. You're going to be the squad leader. But they had PFCs, sergeants, lieutenants, captains. All of them took that course.
And how long was that course?
About a week.
Okay.
But I got through with that, and we had some real poor leadership by that time in the minicav, and a lot of people left. The minicav was voluntary. You didn't have to stay there.
Okay.
So.
Well, you knew they were going to lose the loaches.
Uh-huh.
Were they going to be replaced by what, Hueys, or just you
No.
going to lose the air component totally?
Yeah.
Okay. So they're going to lose the air component. You're a gunner there, so you're not going to have a job.
Right.
So okay, we're going to send you to this leadership school, so then you can have a squad in the minicav.
Right.
Okay.
But what I did with it, a lot of people were leaving, and you know, leadership is real important, and we didn't have it. And so I went over to Thunder Ops that had the loaches anyway, and I asked them if they needed any gunners. Man, yeah, we need some gunners. We need loach gunners bad. And well, we'd been to Da Nang and pulled security guard for a month, and I'd been out of there for a while, and you know, that loach, I'd done been shot down on a loach one time. So I said, I had a Huey in mind this time. Well, we need you for a loach. I said, well, I'll take a Huey job. All right, come on. So I went, you know, I had a lot of experience anyway, so I started flying as a gunner on Colonel Harrison CNC.
Okay. So let me kind of backtrack. So you were shot down in a loach.
Mhm.
Okay. Explain that. Tell us what happened.
We were using 2 loaches that day, and the first one went down this creek, and they said he was taking fire, and so we come in behind him, and they told us we was taking fire, and I guess we probably were. We hit a tree and went down through the jungle, tore that loach all to pieces.
Okay. So you basically hit a tree and went down, as opposed to going down or was it?
I don't know whether there's any bullet holes in it or not, because it was tore all to pieces so bad. Who knew?
Okay, so you hit a tree, and just explain what happened. What did you feel? That's
Well,
pretty terrifying, huh?
Oh yeah, the tree was higher than the others, and pilot cut to the right and going up, and the tail rotor hit the tree, and that made it start spinning and went
Okay.
down through there.
So you kind of auto-rotated down then?
Oh well, bang bang whop whop, you know.
Okay. And were you hurt?
No,
during that?
had a little scratch on my knee.
Okay, so now you're down there. Now what happens?
The minicav was probably 300 or 400 yards from us at that time,
Okay.
and
So you were scouting for a minicav operation that was already going on.
Right.
Okay.
they come and got us. And they had to stay with the helicopter all night, and I got to go back to Camp Evans and drink beer.
Okay. What, they get you out on a logbird or medevac here?
Yeah, Huey.
Okay. And was the loach, did they destroy it or was it extracted out?
Oh, I'm sure they extracted it, but I mean, it wasn't even good for spare parts. It tore that thing all to pieces.
Okay. Okay, you said you got the Purple Heart. How did that happen?
Well, that was later on in the Hueys.
Okay, in the Hueys, okay.
Yeah.
I thought maybe that was part of
No, I
the
didn't
package.
get one.
Was that, in your time in Loaches with the minicav, was that the most significant event that you had when you got shot down? Or not shot down, crashed?
Yeah,
whatever.
I guess so. Of course, we was in some combat and got several goops out of the loach, and that was the purpose,
So how did that happen? Okay, you'd be flying around, you'd spot the enemy, and what generally happened then?
Well, if you was close enough, you'd start shooting, and if you'd circle around, go back down. If you seen them, you'd shoot. If you didn't, the cobras would come in and tear up the whole area.
Did you have to mark the area with smoke or anything?
Sometimes, but the cobras watched us pretty close, and they knew where we needed the stuff put. And you didn't want to use a lot of time putting out smoke and all, Right. Just as soon as we moved over, the cobras were coming in.
Okay.
And I mean, within a few seconds, it didn't. I mean, they wasn't gonna get out of their area before the cobras was real hot on them.
And they would come in with miniguns and rockets and. Approximately how many times would you actually see the enemy when you're doing this scouting thing, as opposed to signs?
Not over 4 or 5 times the whole time I was doing it.
And
Not real often.
your time in the Loaches was about how much of your tour?
About half.
Okay. So you did that for about 6 months.
Mhm.
Okay. And then you said you went to Da Nang?
Yeah, that was, I think it was in March. The 24 Corps headquarters was in Da Nang, and they'd send a platoon every month. The MPs would pull the positions in the daytime, and we'd pull it at night.
So a platoon of what, out of the 101st would have to go, or the various
I don't
units
know
around?
well, probably mostly the 101st, but the minicav, all the minicav went.
So the minicav had to go down and pull security for
Yeah, with flush toilets and tennis courts and movie theaters and all that kind of stuff.
Did you enjoy it?
Yeah.
So, and that was for a month? And that was that before or after you found out you were gonna be out of a job as a loach gunner?
It was about the same time. We knew in Da Nang that when we come back, that we wouldn't have
Okay,
the
you wouldn't have that. And then you went to the leadership school, or did you go
Yeah.
to the leadership school before?
I think it was after Da Nang.
Okay, so you came back from Da Nang, you go to leadership
Yeah.
school. Now, how did you end up in Huey's?
Like I said, we had some poor leadership, and there was a lot of people getting out of the minicav anyway.
Poor leadership. Could you explain that?
Well, he wouldn't go to the field.
Now, this was, were you commanded by a lieutenant or
A
a
lieutenant
captain?
at the time. He'd stay back at Evans and talk to you on the radio, but he wasn't too much on going to the field. And he'd gamble, and everybody pretty well knew he was cheating at that, and he just, nobody had any confidence in him or anything.
When you say gamble, did he play cards with the
Yeah.
men? And he cheated, huh?
I never gambled,
Okay,
but according to everybody else, it's pretty sure that
So you basically just didn't have any respect for it.
nobody had any respect for him.
How many people left because of him?
Probably, I'd say at least 10 or 12.
Okay. Was there any questions about, hey, why are all these guys leaving, or
I don't know.
because there was a big investment in you guys in terms of their training and that?
Right.
So you got back, you went through school, you got this poor leadership, so how did you get into the Huey situation?
I just went over to Thunder Rock.
You're gonna be a squad leader.
Yeah.
A bunch of guys on the ground, and
Yeah.
now you're back in the air.
Yeah, I just went over to 3rd Brigade Aviation, and I knew everybody over there, and asked them if they needed any gunners, and they said, well, you'll have to get a permission from your CO. And I went to my CO and told him about it. He said, man, I done sent you to CLC, it's gonna make you a squad leader and all that. But if they really need you, I'm gonna sign the paper, so I go over there and start flying in Hueys then.
Okay, now you got into Hueys. What in your mind? What was the biggest difference between what you had to do in the Huey and in the Loach?
Generally speaking, the Huey was a lot safer. That was one of the motivators.
Because why was it considered safer?
Well, a Huey don't get down and look for enemy activity, and the troop carriers, they land on LZs and stuff like that, but these were command and control Hueys. We didn't carry any troops.
How did you get selected for a Charlie job?
I don't know.
So
I'd had a lot of hours, and I guess they figured anybody could be a gunner on a Loach. Being a gunner on a Huey is a piece of cake, if you know what I mean.
So you just go there to the 3rd Brigade headquarters and say, I'm a gunner, I want to be here. You get released from your CO. You could get there, and then they assigned you right away to command helicopter.
Yeah, and I had infantry experience and all too. So which most gunners didn't.
Yeah.
So.
So now you're assigned as a door gunner on whose ship?
Well, the brigade commander did not necessarily have one specific command and control helicopter, but most of the time I flew for the colonel.
Okay. Who else when you flew the colonel? Okay, you had a pilot, co-pilot, and a crew chief and a gunner, and who had the colonel on board? Who else would usually be on board with him?
Well, I was assigned to one particular helicopter, and Hassler was the crew chief. Now, the pilot could be any pilot with 3rd Brigade Aviation, but now Harrison flew his own helicopter.
Okay.
He was flight qualified too.
Would he carry any other staff on there, or?
Well, sometimes he'd pick up, maybe even a lieutenant colonel, one of the battalion commanders, and fly around, check out areas and stuff like that.
Okay. So what kinds of missions were you on when you were doing this?
Well, if there's anything going on the ground, usually we flew up higher, and he pretty much coordinated everything and so forth. And he'd make regular trips to Ripcord. Sometimes we'd drop him off and, come back later and pick him up. Of course, as Ripcord heated up, you didn't want to do a whole lot of landing and taking off. But, let's see, it was the 7th of June, we were in the CNC, and we was up north of Ripcord. I can't remember exactly where, but we were dropping off SOIs, change radio frequencies, piece of paper, and you hand it to the dude on the ground. We got about 10 feet off the ground, we got hit with an RPG.
Oh my goodness.
In a river. And it blew a hole bigger than that table right up the top of that Huey. And we went about probably 300 yards, crash landed. And there was 6 of us on there, the 4 crew and a captain and a spec 4. And everybody got wounded. And they couldn't get a Huey in to pick us up, so the Center Loach had to make 3 trips. So I was off to the hospital for a month.
Okay, how severely were you?
I had shrapnel down this leg, this arm, my back, and wasn't life-threatening. I probably had 300. I used to hold my shirt up, and there was more places where there wasn't shirt than there was shirt.
Oh, really? Okay.
So,
did you have any kind of protective armor on? Your regular flak
I didn't have my
jacket?
flak jacket on that day.
Oh, okay.
Which I should have, but I didn't.
Did you get any bad repercussions because you didn't have your flak jacket on? Okay. Okay, so everybody on the chopper was was wounded, but not to go, and the chopper was basically destroyed.
Right.
And how far when you went down, how far were you from friendlies then?
Oh, they were right on the ground.
Right with you there, huh?
Well, the river is here, and they was on the bank, and the crew chief was gonna hand him a piece of paper, and then the firefight, after they hit us, the firefight between the groups on that side, yeah.
Okay, the opposing force was on the other side of the river, okay.
Now, if we went down that river, it'd been all over, I mean, you know, but
Yeah,
luckily it made it a ways before it went down.
how far away, how far did you say it went, about 300-400 meters?
Yes,
or-
something like that.
Okay,
But out of sight of where we went over the trees, there's a little old couple of bomb craters, a little cleared there.
okay. Okay, you were wounded, then you're medevaced out, on Loach, had to take 3 trips.
Yeah.
What happened to you then?
Well, we
Where
went
did
to the
you-
little med station there at Evans, and they picked out a handful of shrapnel and all that, and sent me to Da Nang to the hospital down there. And they picked out more shrapnel, and I come that close to going to Japan, but they didn't think I was quite bad enough, so they picked out more shrapnel, and I stayed there for 4 or 5 days, and then went down south to one of these rehab hospitals.
Where was that at?
I don't know whether it was Long Bend, Benoit, what,
Okay.
I can't remember, but it, it was down south. Cam Ranh Bay or something or other down there.
Okay, what, could you tell the difference in the facilities? Was it becoming more of like a stateside hospital where you?
Well, the
got
one in Da
covered?
Nang was, but this one down there, it's just barracks and so forth. I mean, everybody was able to get up and go eat.
Okay, everybody was mobile, but profile.
Just healing up. And
Yeah.
you'd get out and do exercises, and you'd go get treatments. I'd get the betadine whirlpools and then go swim in the ocean and all that mess,
Did you get to go to, was there any Vietnamese presence around you, a town or anything that you got to go to, or no?
No, I never left it.
I was going to Cam Ranh, so if you got a beach, you're at Cam Ranh Bay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or it could have been down Bong Tao too. if
Yeah.
I took 'em, but, so.
And we'd actually go out and pull bunker guard at night and all that stuff.
Oh, you'd have to do that?
Yeah.
huh? Okay. So the walking wounded had to do something, okay. So you stayed there for, about a month you said, and,
About probably 3 weeks there.
3 weeks.
But I was gone from the unit about a month.
about a month, okay. And again, when did you say this, the
It
chopper was
was
shot
the
down?
7th of June.
7th of June. Okay.
I remember that because that's the day my family back home had their family reunion that day.
Okay. Okay. Well, while you're in your whole Vietnam experience, did you have much contact with your family? Did you write back and forth?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And okay, so after your rehab, you rejoined the unit.
Yeah, but some of the places got reinfected on the way back, and I spent another week in the little med station there at Evans.
Okay.
I'd keep my beer in the cooler where they kept their medicine and all, and we'd go eat breakfast and drink beer and mess around all day. And then I went back to flying, and Ripcord had really heated up by then. And it was a whole different ball game when
How is it different?
you go in and there's being hit by mortars and all, and you'd come in with a helicopter and you'd be a half mile away. Well, all the mortars would stop, because they heard the helicopter coming, and they was waiting for that thing to touch down.
And then,
Yeah. And Ripcord I flew over the whole 101st area of operations over there, and nowhere had wind like Ripcord. You'd think that helicopter's gonna come out of the air. It was so windy.
really? Yeah. How many trips would you reckon you made into Ripcord?
I don't know. Several.
And this was still when you're flying to CNC, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Well, I know we went in, was gonna take off one time, Harrison was flying, and we'd pick up and turn around and fall off down this hill. Well, he turned around and that wind caught him. I bet it blowed him 50 feet backwards. And that tail rotor wasn't that high off the ground,
Oh boy.
but it didn't hit.
Were you back there saying, "Oh shit"?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Okay.
And he was too up there, so.
I bet. So, how did that work with Colonel Harrison as the pilot?
Like how,
I mean, he was obviously he was a very good pilot,
Yeah.
but he was he going in some places where maybe you thought another pilot wouldn't even bother going into, or didn't want to?
maybe, but he was a real good pilot, but he didn't take unnecessary risks. He's a real smart man, but you know, he's flying the helicopter, plus he was coordinating everything on the
Right,
ground
yeah,
too.
he had a lot, and he'd have to get pretty close to things to be
Yeah.
able to, coordinate all the various actions, so.
Yeah. Well, he was real professional. He didn't do out of control stuff.
Did you like it when he flew, or did you like it
Yeah.
better when another
Oh yeah,
pilot
he
flew?
was a good pilot.
Okay. Okay, so, can you remember when your last trip into Ripcord was?
It was probably the day of the 23rd when we evacuated it.
Okay,
I was with Harrison all day that day. It was a real interesting day.
now tell me about that day, yeah.
Well, for one thing, you know, you probably heard of what Fred Spaulding did.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I was usually up above him, and I seen the whole works all day. Him and Steve Wanlin, the pilot. Their odds of making it that day was not good at all. Because remember, I had Loach experience, and I seen what they was doing. See, they had no minigun, no hand grenades, no gunner in the back, and just a pilot and Fred was sitting up front, and they was down there right in the trees marking targets when they was trying to get Alpha Company out of their bad situation.
So you saw that and you said,
Oh, yeah.
holy smokes, huh?
What are they doing?
Yeah. And so you were back and forth all that day, or
Yeah.
did you touch down that day when they?
No.
Okay, you didn't carry
No.
anybody out or anything.
We'd come back to Evans to refuel several times, but we never touched down on Ripcord.
Were you receiving much fire at that time?
I don't remember. We may have, but I didn't know it, and I never fired a shot the whole day. But you know, we were generally up higher.
Yeah. What were we, about 2,000 feet?
Well, a lot of times not that much, and then General Berry, he was in his above us. You know, so we wasn't, most of the time we wasn't really down there where the action was.
Okay. Okay, so Ripcord ends, and you guys get back. Well, even before that, as flying the Charlie, did you ever function as a medevac when? Can you ever recall bringing people out
No.
that way? Okay, so.
Once in a while, we'd bring a man out like if we was, you know, a replacement or something other
Okay.
like that.
Somebody just hitch a ride because they know you're going back to Evans or whatever.
And another thing about the evacuation, you know, they were rockets, mortars, all that kind of stuff until the last helicopter got off with me, and the enemy fire stopped. And there was one guy running around down there. And Harrison was going to go down and get him. We didn't know whether he was Vietnamese, American, or what. And I was going to be the one that's going to have to go get him. But the last minute, he decided to let Loach go down and get him. But it was a Vietnamese Kit Carson scout.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So I was right there when that happened.
So you were you observed the whole,
Oh, yeah.
most of Ripcord,
Oh, yeah.
most of the evacuation, other than your trips back to refuel. How long of a trip was it from Ripcord
It was
to?
about 20
Evans?
minutes.
About 20-minute trip? Okay. Okay, and you kept turning around and spent all day there, huh?
Yep.
How did you think that process went when they were evacuating it?
I think it went really well. You know, there was a time early in evacuation that the troops wouldn't get on the helicopters. They was taking so much fire.
Well, they were afraid to get shot down?
Oh yeah, or get shot running from the bunker to the helicopter. But you know, according to Ben Harrison, you know, Randy House took over the helicopters coming in there, and it was real orderly. I mean, they wasn't piled up and all that kind of stuff. One come in, and here come another one. And they got them off a whole lot quicker than you'd have thought they would have, for that many people and taking that much fire. It was a well-planned, well-organized deal, and
Do you know if any helicopters were lost in that process?
well, they had a Chinook, on top of it.
Yeah,
Yeah, burned
I
up
know,
and all.
I know the Chinook, but in the evacuation process.
There was several disabled, but I can't recall any going down.
Some, they got back to Evans, but they
Yeah.
were pulled out of line because of
Right.
malfunctions or
Right.
damage and that, okay. Okay, then, okay, after Ripcord, much the same thing, or?
Well, we had other stuff going on, nothing like Ripcord, and I flew for about a month after Ripcord. But see, I had extended a month and a half to get the early out. So when Ripcord was over, I flew about another month, and then they give me some of these rinky-dink rear jobs for a month and a half. And I gained 25 pounds. Before.
Did you spend that time at Evans?
Yeah,
Okay, so you extended for what, a month and a half?
yeah, but I done that early on.
Oh, when did you decide to extend to get out of the Army then?
Pretty early in Vietnam. I figured I didn't want to go spend a year in Vietnam and then come back and play soldier for 6 months somewhere.
Yeah.
So, but the maintenance officer, he told me, toward the last August, he says, "Well, ain't you getting about ready to go home?" I said, "How long you been here?" I said, "Been here a year." So, "What's the deal?" I said, "I extended for a month and a half." I said, "You ain't got a rear job for me?" "Well, hell yeah, we get you a rear job." You done been shot down twice and all? "Yeah, well, you don't need to fly no more."
So you had a month and a half of extension, so how much time did you, I shouldn't say lose, but how much early time did they give you to go get out?
Well, see, I would have had 5 months left when
Okay,
I left Vietnam, but
okay,
they just let me out.
yeah, so you were under 6 months, so you go home.
Yeah,
You get out,
when
you
I
get
left Fort
discharged.
Lewis, that was the end of the Army for me.
Yeah, you were a PFC when you left.
Yeah.
But I want to go back to Evans. You spent a lot of time in Evans then.
Yeah, the whole
And,
time, except for the name.
What kind of drug problems did you observe or see? Or?
There was right much marijuana, not a tremendous amount, and there's some that took some pills. I don't know what they were. Seen one dude come in the mess hall, take a pill, and you go up the steps, get your stuff, and come back down the steps, and he took a blue pill, and he come down this side and just fell out on the floor.
Okay.
Now, in the hospital, down south, big time drugs. I mean, get out and watch the movie and it's just a cloud of marijuana smoke everywhere. And nobody did anything about it.
Yeah, it seemed to be tolerated.
Oh, yeah.
And Evans, you've noticed you were aware of problems, but were they widespread or?
Pretty much so. There was a lot of marijuana, but they did catch a few and reduce their rank and stuff like that. Some of them got penalized for it.
Okay, was it mostly the guys in the rear, or were there?
Yeah, that, and then the ones come in from the field, for a while. I guess
Okay.
some of them did it too.
Okay. How about racial problems?
Yeah, it was getting pretty bad by 70.
When you say bad, what do you explain that?
Well, for one thing, in the minicav, I guess all the blacks, everybody had to carry M60 machine gun ammo,
Right.
and they'd get out there and they just throw theirs in the bushes and pour out half their water and food, and then want to bum off everybody else that had the water and food and the 60 ammo. There's a lot of them thought it was a white man's war and they shouldn't be there.
And that was in the field, when you were in the field, right?
Yeah, and back at Evans too, they didn't. And, well, even in the minicav, there's some that got where they refused to go out. They wouldn't go out on a mission.
And what happened to those folks?
They didn't do nothing to them.
Didn't do anything? They just said, we're not going? And,
That's right.
well, what was everybody else's reaction to that?
Oh, we didn't think much of them.
Did that cause any trouble or any fights or?
Yeah, yeah.
That's, and regarding that, you know, a lot of people hear about, you know, the people that hear about Vietnam and that, they think about fragging and, you know, all that kind of stuff. Did you have any knowledge of anything like that?
The only thing I knew of is, we had with Thunder Ops, there was a new captain coming in while I was in the hospital, and he had an air conditioner. And the unit was outside, and you didn't have a lot of electricity. And if somebody had something like an air conditioner hooked up, like I had a refrigerator. But when he'd use that air conditioner, whoever had a refrigerator, it'd go to defrosting. You know, there wasn't enough juice for both. And they fragged his air conditioner.
Okay, this is just so they could have
Yeah.
electricity, right?
Right.
Yeah. What, was that made into a big deal or?
No,
just
I don't think so.
Went through that, yeah.
Right.
Okay, but Evans, you spent a lot of time at Evans, in and out of Evans and all that, in the basically 13 months, or 13 and a half months. That
Yeah, except for the month we was in Denay.
Did it change? Did you feel it was worse when you left than it was when you got there, or when you got there, weren't you aware of that?
Well, you know, I wasn't with the line companies, you know, I'd fly for them and stuff like
Yeah.
that, but, you know, I didn't know how the attitude in the line companies were and all that, but I'd say probably in the minicav, it probably got worse while I was there.
Okay. Now, explain your non-flying life at Evans to me. You would be out flying, you'd basically fly during the daylight, you probably wouldn't be out too much at night.
Sometimes we'd go out at night.
But that was
Yeah.
infrequent, right?
Right.
Okay. Okay, you're done flying, did you have any other responsibilities or duties, or?
Yeah, like with the minicav, you know, we had to burn shit and pull bunker guard. We built a clubhouse, a basketball court, stuff like that. Had to help out with that. Well, even with Thunder Ops, you know, we had to pull bunker guard and all with them.
Even when you were in the Hueys,
Yeah.
you pull. How often would you have to pull bunker guard?
Probably no more than once a week,
Okay.
something like that.
Did you guys resent doing that, or no?
Not really.
Just got to do it.
Somebody had to do it.
Did everybody in the aviation unit have to do that, or just like the door gun? I mean, did the mechanics have to pull bunker?
Yeah, you know, crew chiefs, double gunners, that sort of thing.
Okay, regardless of rank, huh?
I don't know if anybody, don't know whether any sergeants pulled the bunker guard or not. I don't think it did.
Okay. So you left Vietnam then through what, Cam Ranh Bay again, or?
Yeah, I guess.
Can you remember? Okay.
Yeah, I know I left Evans and, I flew the Lukes myself down to Phu Bai, which is pretty cool, you know,
So
they
you
talk.
got to, is that how you got out of Evans, was on a Loach to
Oh, yeah.
Phu Bai,
Yeah.
and they let you fly it?
Yeah, well, I flew right much, you know, like to go to Camp Eagle and so forth. And the pilots in the Loaches, they wanted us to know how to fly it, because if something happened to them, you know, we could at least
Okay.
get it back to Camp Evans or something.
Well, we gotta talk about that a little bit. What was your first reaction when they said, "Here, Leonard, take the stick"?
Oh, it was fun, and they're not very hard to fly in the air moving. Now the takeoff and landings were the tricky
Right,
parts.
yeah. So, the pilots would make sure that, especially on a Loach, where there's only two of you at that time, that, you know, if something happened to one,
I don't know if all of them did it,
Yeah,
but most of them.
were most of the pilots warrant officers, or were they commissioned officers?
We had both, but most of them were officers.
Okay. So you went from Evans to Phu Bai, and you flew the Loach,
Yeah,
and then what happened?
I got on C-130 and went down south somewhere.
Okay.
Got on the plane.
And can you remember getting on the plane coming home?
Oh yeah. And then sat there for an hour and a half before we ever took off.
Any reason why the plane sat there? or-
I don't really know.
Yeah.
They didn't tell
And
us.
what was the reaction of everybody when you took off?
Oh, there was a little cheering going on when the wheels come off the ground.
Okay, and what was your route back? Do you remember?
Japan.
Japan, and
Yeah.
then But back to
Fort
the
Lewis.
States, Fort Lewis?
Yeah.
Okay, so you got to Fort Lewis and you knew you were gonna get out of the Army,
Mhm.
right? You had a job. How long were you in Fort Lewis?
I think 15 hours. The ones that was going to deroast, they got out in about 8 hours, and the ones that's going ETS about 15 hours.
Yeah, so you had got your new greens and got your steak dinner and your re-up lecture and
Yeah.
did anybody try to talk into re-upping? No?
I don't think
I
so.
mean, in Nam or back at Fort Lewis?
I know one time in the minicav, they didn't tell which individuals, but they said a lot of us had real high scores on the aptitude test, and we'd qualify for OCS
Oh, okay.
if we was interested, but nobody took it.
Nobody raised their hand, huh? Okay, so did you encounter any anti-war protesters in Fort
It
Lewis
was
or
like
Seattle?
12:30, 1 o'clock in the morning when we got back, and there was a fence over there, and there was, this was a quarter of a mile away, and there's 3 or 4 people over there toting
Oh,
signs,
okay,
but they
that's
wasn't
okay.
close to us really.
Did anybody tell you not to travel in uniform or anything coming home?
Don't remember. Well, you had to wear a uniform.
So then,
Khakis is what we had to put on.
yeah, but then you got greens at Fort Lewis, didn't you?
No, we come back in
Oh,
khakis.
really?
Yeah,
Okay.
they changed that.
All the way home, huh?
Mhm.
Okay. So then you processed out of Fort Lewis in 15 hours, and you catch a flight home.
Yeah, to Chicago, we had about a 5 or 6 hour layover.
Anything significant happened then, or?
Now we went and got a little motel and got a few hours sleep.
Okay. And then you got home?
Yep.
Okay. How did you spend the rest of your life then?
Well, I went back to work at the job I had that I hated, and I worked a week and put in a 2-week notice. I wasn't gonna stay there.
What
And
job was that?
I worked at a cigarette factory.
Okay.
Good pay, good benefits and all, but indoors. And I grew up on a farm. So I did construction work and then worked for my wife's daddy on a dairy farm, and then I bought a farm myself.
Okay.
And then a few years later, I bought another farm adjoining and self-employed, you know, ever since.
After you got out, then you